Everybody wants to kind of come over you a little bit. The senator has going to spend a few minutes telling us why he wants to go to Washington, which I can't imagine. But I've known Senator Bob for a long time, and one thing I can tell you is whether he agrees with you or disagrees with you, you're going to know. And he's going to be in the same place next week he was last week. And very few people like that, and I admire you a lot, Senator. And I'm thrilled you're here, and I'm thrilled that you're running for something to go down there to Washington and tell these folks shape up a little. So,
thank you.
Welcome.
Let me start by telling you where I came from. I love telling the story of how my first job, real job, was next to City Hall in Nashua. It was at Panagula's Shoe. I was a shoe shine boy, and I shined the shoes of the mayor and the aldermen, and that's where I learned that getting my hands dirty was okay because I made great tips, and I learned to keep my head down. I also learned to keep my ears open because it was amazing if you sat around and you listened just what you might learn. From that point, I went to work at Greenbrier Nursing Home. I was a maintenance guy, which is a fancy word for I washed floors. But that's where I met my wife, who I've been married to for 34 years. And I know a lot of you aren't going to understand this, but I smelled chocolate chip cookies, and she happened to be the one baking them, and I fell in love.
Some of us understand.
Yeah. From that point on, my wife went to college. I get into the construction industry, and I work my way from the bottom up. I actually am one of those people who have lived the American dream. I started with nothing. I worked hard, which is what Americans do, and I worked all the way up till I owned the company, and then I owned other companies, and eventually I could call myself a success. I ended up going to Concord when, as a business person, the regulations had come to the point where I was frustrated by the cost for workers' comp. When I went to my legislators, they said, "You think you can do a better job? Why don't you come up and do it?" So I ran for election. I was lucky enough to get elected, and that was the year that we actually revamped the entire workers' comp system so that not only could we stay in business, but people in New Hampshire could actually have jobs. From that year forward, there was always one more thing I could do or stop as a small business person. Being a small business person, I understood what it took to actually stay in business. It wasn't like a lot of people think that if you're in business, you're rich and money just pours in and you get to go on vacation. And some of you are laughing because you know exactly what I mean. You usually don't get to go to vacation. You're struggling to collect all the things that everybody owes you. But up there, they don't look at it that way. They think it's that easy. So I stayed all these years. And I'll tell you, I want to go to Washington for the same reason. I actually believe I can do a better job than Paul Hodes. I can do a better job because I know what it's like to have to work. I know what it's like to make the mortgage payment, the truck payment. I also know what it's like to be late on the property tax. I'm not kidding anybody. I've been there too. You know, you have to make that decision. What do you pay next? But I always paid my debts. But I never spent more. Is that Rudy? I know it's going to be an old joke, but what the heck. I never spent more in my house than I was bringing in. And I think that's the biggest problem we see in Washington today is they don't have any problem taking the credit card out. You know, and it's not just Washington. It's now trickled down to the state of New Hampshire. Just a few weeks ago, they passed a bill that allowed them to bond for $80 million the payment on bonds. So make it simple. They said okay to use the credit card to pay the mortgage payment. Now, you didn't vote for that? Thank you. Neither did I. But this is what we have to fight, and the only way we can fix that is all of us have to get together. We have to get our neighbors and all of our families out to vote.